Yeah, I'm trying to expand my classes. I really to have a whole lot of black and white.
Okay, let's get our work session started here. So we need a roll call there, Miss Mary.
Chairman Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Black?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Daugherty?
Here.
Mr. Groan?
Here.
Ms. Haddon?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Keene? Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Slater?
Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Robertson?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Groan asked to be recognized. That's something I think a word he wants to share. So, Mr. Groan.
This year, the Tennessee House Joint Resolution 803 was put forward and passed, and I would like to read that resolution because we're getting ready to start a new school year. And I think it's important that we stop and ponder and meditate on this resolution. So put forth by Representative Fritz, a resolution to seek God's hand of mercy on healing Tennessee. Whereas our state and nation suffer from violence committed upon our citizens by our citizens, and whereas our state and nation suffer from violence committed upon our citizens by non-citizens, and whereas acts of violent crime in our schools are unacceptable, and whereas human trafficking is an unacceptable and violent evil in our state, enslaving lives and violating the core values of our Creator-endowed rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and whereas drug addiction overwhelms our families, our government finances, our workforce productivity, as well as our health care and our law enforcement resources. And whereas deadly fentanyl flows uncontrollably across our southern U.S. border, resulting in the deaths of Tennesseans, and whereas driving under the influence, drunk driving, results in great pain and injury to Tennessee families, and whereas we have approximately 9,000 children in need of foster care, indicating a brokenness in many Tennessee homes, and whereas evidence of corruption in our federal government stands to impact every Tennessean, whereas our national and state founders trusted in the omnipotent hand of providence to guide and bless our land, whereas over decades these leaders called our people to seek out our Creator's favor by issuing proclamations like the one from John Adams on April 15, 1799. This day be observed throughout the United States of America as a day of solemn humiliation, fasting, and prayer. That the citizens on that day abstain as far as may be from their secular occupation and devote the time to the sacred duties of religion in public and in private, that they call to mind our numerous offenses against the Most High God, confess them before Him with the sincerest penitence, implore His pardoning mercy through the great Healer and Redeemer for our past transgressions, and that through the grace of His Holy Spirit we may be disposed and enabled to yield a more suitable obedience to His righteous requisitions in time to come, that He would interpose to arrest the progress of that impiety and lasciviousness in principle and practice so offensive to Him and so ruinous to humankind, that He would make us deeply sensible that righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Proverbs 14:34. And whereas we hold that our founders correctly acknowledged the truth in their words, and whereas we hold that except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. Psalms 127:1. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the Senate concurring that the period of July 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2024 be recognized as a time of prayer and fasting. Be it further resolved that we recognize that God as Creator and King of all glory has both the authority to judge and to bless nations or states. Be it further resolved that we as public servants of the Tennessee General Assembly seek God's mercy on our land and beseech Him not to withdraw His hand of blessing from us. Be it further resolved we recognize our sins and shortcomings before Him and humbly ask His forgiveness. Be it further resolved that we ask the Lord Jesus to heal our land and remove the violence, human trafficking, addiction, and corruption. Be it further resolved that we ask that the Holy Spirit fill the halls of government, our classrooms, our places of business, our churches, and our homes with peace, love, and joy. Be it further resolved that we call upon those who are physically able and spiritually inclined to do so to join in the 30-day season of prayer and intermittent fasting as we begin a new fiscal year as a means of seeking God's blessing and humbling ourselves to receive His grace and mercy, transforming ourselves, our communities, our state, and our nation. And this was meant to be observed every year. So for the children that we and our staff are all responsible for, we need to be praying for them as we get ready to begin a new school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. We got Coach James. It's not on the agenda there because we had some late signees. We've got a couple of delegations, and then we'll bring you up, Coach. Thank you for hustling like that.
Now I'm going to read the delegation statement. We actually have two that signed up for appearances before the board. Terry Bonfiglio? Bonfiglio? Did I get that right? Okay. And then we have a Mrs. Stover. Okay. I apologize. I can't read the writing for the first name. So the Stover is Melanie? Okay. Melanie Stover. So this is the delegation statement. I'll read this once and it applies to the both of you. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. When you come to the podium, please state your name, your topic that you will be addressing, and your address. You may begin when you're ready. Terry. Miss Bonfiglio.
Hi, my name is Terry Bonfiglio. I live at 1046 East 4th Street. We've owned the house for 25 years and have paid property tax for that long. And I am here to address DEI in our school system.
And, excuse me, just 1 second, ma'am. Madam Vice Chair, we don't have the remote, so I'm just going to do it on my phone.
Okay.
I'll signal you when there's 1 minute left. So
Okay.
sorry, we won't have that on the wall for you.
That's okay. I do not believe DEI is appropriate for our schools, as I find it biased and discriminatory toward white students, creating unfairness and racism among all students. I believe all students should be treated equally. As a homeowner in Chattanooga for 25 years, paying property and sales taxes, I am concerned about how my tax dollars are being used, and our taxes keep going up. I also oppose social emotional learning, SEL, which weakens our children and makes them less resilient. And I oppose critical race theory because it undermines the accurate teaching of our great nation's history and puts a negative slant on our great nation. Why would we want to teach our children to hate our country? Because I help fund the school budget through my taxes, I oppose allocating resources for interpreters for illegal immigrants. Our educational funds should focus on the needs of our community's American children, and those needs are great. Additionally, President Trump recently issued an executive order to end DEI. Shouldn't we follow in step with our government? Our school budget funds should not be funneled to people who are not American citizens. Rather, funds should be directed to our community and the needs of our own community. In summary, my position is that DEI, SEL, and CRT should not be implemented in our school systems as they are unfair, potentially unlawful, making us vulnerable to perhaps a lawsuit, which is not cheap, and not in the best interest of all students and taxpayers. And we should not be directing taxpayer funds in your budget to aid non-citizens. Thank you.
Ms. Melanie Stover.
Hello, my name's Melanie Stover. I live in the city. I've got this necklace on because I've had grandchildren in the public schools. And I'd like to start out by saying, if I had it to do over, I would have taken out a loan to send my kids to another school, a private school, because of what's going on in our public schools. My grandchildren were taught and really encouraged that they could be a different sex, that my grandchildren were taught that they could change from a boy to a girl and from a girl to a boy, and that the school would call them by their new name, the boy or the girl that they're not. That's what our school system is doing. Our public school system, and just like what was said, I pay taxes, and I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. I want you to cut the budget next year. I want it cut, and I'll fight for that. Also, our legislators have passed laws to get that pornography out of our schools. And I hear people coming up here all the time talking about you not getting the pornography out of our schools. So why can't you get it out of the schools? Your school board, you're elected. Don't you have any power to go in the schools and get it out? Why are you so impotent about it? I don't understand it. I understand one school board member was able to call up the principals and say, get these books out of our school. Why can't the rest of you do it? Why can't you audit the schools and make sure they're out of the schools? There's a list of books, and these people who come up here and say, oh, we're going to put these little libraries in the schoolrooms, if a teacher allows it, they should be disciplined. If they're allowing books that are banned by our state legislators to be in classrooms, then that teacher should be disciplined. I'm sick of listening to excuses.
Can you pause time? Point of clarity. This isn't on our agenda. Scott, can you check?
I thought we could talk about what we wanted to talk about
When you
here.
sign up the day of, it's supposed to be about an agenda item.
Well, nobody has informed me of that, so.
It's not on our agenda, like, we're not talking about this. Well, I'm not supposed to go back and forth, but as the vice chair, I do know that
So
what the
noted.
policy says, and so I
So
just wanted
noted.
to state that. So it's in our policy that is public,
And that we're reviewing this evening.
and all the policies that everybody else reviews as we go down, people review policies, so just wanted
Well,
to
it
make sure.
sounds like an excuse to me.
I don't
okay?
make excuses, they're tools of
Okay.
incompetence.
I would like to see.
So I just want to know I just want to make sure I'm following policy, that's all I'm trying to do.
Okay, I
Because
will-
we have to, we can't set a precedence for one that we don't set for
I
all.
will not talk about that anymore. I'll change the subject.
That's all, I just want to.
So can we talk about how our schools are failing and we're not reading
That's not
and
on the
writing
agenda
at school
either.
level, at their class level? Can we talk about that?
It's not on the agenda.
Oh, I see.
Because that's what the policy says.
What our policy is.
No,
Okay.
she's not stepping on my toes. I can listen to her all day long. I'm just trying not to set a precedent because we wouldn't allow anyone else to do it at any other meeting, and we have not, and so we can't do that going forth unless we change the policy.
Where's the, yeah, so.
So what are we doing?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I'm following policy.
Sure,
So I'm
sure.
going to talk to the attorney.
All right, 1 second, please. So the vice chair is correct that there are two ways to address the board. Either you're addressing an agenda item, or in advance of the meeting, you ask to be placed on the work session agenda to address something that is not on the agenda.
Okay, I get it. I'll do that next
I'm
time.
not being ugly.
No,
I understand. I'll do that next time since that's the rules. I believe in following the rules,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? I do believe in that.
Well, I'm looking here, and to finish my thought, I'm looking here at the agenda, and we do have 4403, which is reconsideration of instructional materials and textbooks. That is effectively the policy that she's asking about, and
Okay,
as
so
I
just wanna
interpret,
make sure that
as I
I'm being
interpret,
clear.
she's asking how is it being implemented? So broadly, and looking at the spirit of 1404, and I have to thank Mr. Connor for, I heard him say, it is on the agenda, I checked, so I think he's probably right.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
And just. you
Go
have
ahead,
two-
ma'am.
you have
Go
two-
start back.
You have 2 minutes and 10 seconds left, just
Okay.
FYI.
The next topic I wanted to talk about is focusing education to our children on the basics, reading, writing, history, literature, and getting away from all of this ideology that's in our schools.
That may not be-
I think it's a shame that our children in Hamilton County are not up to the standard of reading and math that they should be. I know you've made a little progress, but it should be more. And I'm confused about the fact that we have these board meetings at a time when working parents, single-parent parents, parents in the inner city can't make it here. That bothers me. Parents should be able to come without taking off of work. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Coach James?
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith, distinguished board members. I'm here to give an update on the status of athletics in Hamilton County schools. And, you know, there's been a little, some different information out there. I just wanted to clarify that today. So I have a PowerPoint prepared here. All right. Make sure I'm headed the right way. All right. So, current status of athletics in Hamilton County. Since the creation of the athletic department in 2022, we've made many advances in the areas of sportsmanship, accountability, coaches' education, professionalism amongst our coaches and athletic directors. In addition to the improvement through coaches' education and accountability models, we have, over the past 3 years, and this is a very conservative estimate, invested over $15 million into improvement of athletic facilities throughout the district. Field houses, tracks, fields, new gym floors, bleachers, resurfacing, all throughout the district. So something that Dr. Robertson made it, it was kind of his mission to start dedicating some funds, and through his cooperation with the county mayor, we're able to help fund many of these projects. So we're very appreciative of that. I appreciate all you guys have done. Since 2022, Hamilton County Schools has won 18 individual team state championships. When you compare that to the other major metropolitan areas of Shelby County, Williamson, Davidson, Knox County, we are above our peers in the number of state championships that we're bringing home. And in that last 3-year period, we've had close to 50 individual state champions in their sports. So that's trending definitely in the right direction from where we were 4 years ago. And it's just it's accomplishment that can be attributed to the dedication to facilities improvement, coaches' education, and hiring good people to do the job. All right. Currently in Hamilton County, we have almost 1,000 coaches. We have 1,560 some odd positions that are filled by roughly 1,000 people. It varies from year to year. It can, high 900s to low thousands, but that's a good average. We service nearly 7,000 student athletes throughout the district. That's a pretty large number. When you start looking at, we're just talking about coaches. If we encompassed all extracurricular, that number is almost going to double when the time you do band, etc. The district retention rate for our coaches hovers around the 90% mark. That means that we're hanging on to most of our coaches on an annual basis, which is about average when you start looking around the 100-mile radius of our area. I believe that one of Dr. Robertson and Dr. Sharp's, you give Dr. Sharp some credit on the facilities improvement, and Justin Witt, but one of his colleagues introduced him to a thing called Better Way Athletics. Better Way Athletics, I think, is one of the key components that we've used in the past 3 years. We have reduced our instances of unsportsmanlike conduct amongst players, fans, and coaches by 55% in 3 years. That's a very admirable result. All right. So, current status. Did I go the wrong way? I sure did. All right. Coaching supplements. Our district office determined that a flat rate system of supplementation would be easier for annual budgeting, and that it would be a predictable amount based on the number of coaching positions. Under the current system, which is percentage based, as people get years of experience, as they get step raises in their experience, then that is a fluctuating model. A compensation study was created by Evergreen Solutions last year, and the purpose of the study was to see how we were doing versus our peers within, I think, about 150-mile region of Chattanooga. What that gave us coaches' pay, band directors' pay, tutoring pay, streams of what our neighboring systems are paying. As a result of the study, a proposed flat rate was developed, and we basically took our comparison by area, looked at what we could afford, and came up with a flat rate for coaches' pay. Just a proposal. It's looking at going back to that flat rate concept. Due to a flat budget year, it was determined that it was not feasible to implement at the time. what we would have seen with the flat rate was your younger coaches were going to basically get raises, your older coaches would be held harmless, and that would be a stagnant rate for them until they retire. But it would cost roughly $500,000 to implement. So it was just kind of put on hold before we ever moved forward with any presentations or thought of concept or tweaking. So that's where we are on that. All right. Went the wrong way again. So moving forward, we've got some questions to answer. It's quite simply, how do we address having enough coaches for our programs who have more kids? I mean, that's one of the things that we see right now with our system. Lookout Valley has the same number of football coaches as Saudi Daisy High School. We have some programs that'll have 60 kids through their basketball program. They've got they play 9th grade, JV, and varsity, yet they've only got 2 coaches. We've got some that struggle to put 6 on the floor. So I think that's one of the things we look at moving forward. And then one of the things we've got to determine, should there be a minimum number set to field the team? When you look at it from a expenditure standpoint, we've got, I always use one school that had 2 wrestlers, and yet we paid a head wrestling coach and assistant wrestling coach for those 2 kids. We've got to figure out a way that we can address these issues, maybe shift some of these coaches toward those programs that have greater numbers. Then the question is, do we want to entertain the flat rate? Is the flat rate enough? And are we comparing apples to apples when we look at surrounding districts? A lot of districts do things that we don't, as far as supplementation by booster clubs, extended contracts, mowing supplements, things of that nature that help extend those that income for those coaches. So, and then ultimately, we've got to determine what the potential cost of any of those would be. So that is where we're at. If you've got any questions, feel free. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not sure I have answers for all of them. I do know this, is that building champions, and when I say building champions, we're not talking about, I learned this from Joe Smith a long time. It doesn't matter if you win ever match in the ring or not. What are you going to be a champion in life? How are you going to be as an employee, a father, a husband? So, it takes the entire community commitment to build champions. So I feel that Hamilton County Schools is doing a good job of building champions right now. Can we do better? Absolutely. I'm the old coach. Perfection's here, and you never reach it, but it's always something you strive for. So I do appreciate your time, and if you have any questions.
Coach James, thank you for your work, and thank you for bringing us up to date here and all the stuff that's going on. And there is a lot going on, and as I look through all these challenges, questions you're asking here, and what you're going to be doing moving forward. We have a committee for just about everything, for transportation, for facilities, for finance. Would it be helpful to you if you had an athletic committee?
Absolutely. That's actually on my
I believe
growth
Steve
plan.
Slater would be the perfect person to chair an athletic committee.
So Joe, I'm glad you asked. As far as my strategic plan, I've actually turned it into Dr. Sharp. Creating an athletic committee is one of those, and having a board member.
Well, it just got done.
Okay, all right.
Check that off. It's done. And
Yes, sir.
Steve, I think you'd be the guy.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Thank you.
So I got several
okay.
several folks that want to have a question. Okay, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming and taking time and talking about this, and I love how you kind of closed it out with the concept of building champions. Sports is a prime example of what that looks like. Now, granted, there's different levels of what a champion looks like, whether it's band or art or STEM. There's things where kids thrive in different areas and can attain a level of what I would call championship, right? But sports is oftentimes, I think we can all agree, the one that's the most prime example. When I look at sports, now granted I'm biased because I played it growing up and I married into a very big wrestling family. I think there's no greater impact to a kid in terms of the way they're brought up and their development through that of a good coach. And I think that's the power that a good coach has in these kids, particularly in some of their most formative years. You're talking about going through puberty and all the challenges that come with that, having a steady voice of reason that can guide a kid through some of the most probably challenging times. When I look at our situation from an athletic perspective, there's a lot that's going right. You alluded to some of the championships that we've been able to obtain through the coaches' effort and obviously the kids' efforts. But I think we would share a sentiment in the sense that there's perfection and they're striving towards that, right? No one's ever going to be perfect. But where I'm curious your thoughts is what could we be doing more to facilitate a continued advancement in sports? Like, is it a funding issue? Because when I look at it from my perspective, particularly as a finance chair, I think a lot of times it comes to funding. Like, how do you fund more positions? And of course, that's a challenge we have within where we are budgetary coming out of last year. But I'm curious your perspective as kind of your position. What would you say?
Well, so as a coach, I would have talked to you I'd had a very different viewpoint than after I've been out here for 3 years and seen the tremendous amount of just demands on our budget. So for me to make a comment, yes, we would love to have more money. A lot of our surrounding counties are smaller. They have 3 to 4 schools they're funding. We have so many schools that it's difficult to fund them at the same level athletically as our surrounding districts. So I'll leave that to the finance people and the superintendent to figure out. Could we potentially commit more of our resources toward athletics? Once again, that's up for you guys to determine.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot on it, but I think ultimately that's kind of where my head goes. Like when you look at surrounding states, particularly Georgia, Georgia does a lot of things well outside of Atlanta Braves baseball, but one thing they do very well is the way the payment schedule of their coaches. And to my understanding, those coaches are on a yearly pay cycle. Whereas I think, and Justin, keep me honest here, but our coaches are on the same pay schedule that a teacher is, so not a full-time position per se. Whereas I know for a fact, particularly within football, those coaches are doing work year-round. So and I'm just speaking out loud. I'm not looking for a response per se, but I think that's something we really need to look at, and it's probably a discussion need to run up the ladder to the state and say how do we better allocate funds for this and. Just something to think about, and that's just kind of where my head's at. But it's a good discussion to have because I think it's absolutely warranted.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Schaefer?
Thank you, Coach James. You guys don't know, but Coach James was our coach,
Right.
East Ridge Pioneers.
That makes me old. Don't tell people.
So I've been discussing with Mr. Bennett, we have certified versus non-certified pay schedules. And I'll use East Hamilton as an example. We have a female head basketball girls coach who's non-certified. She has a master's degree, but she's not certified as a teacher. So she's receiving substantially less pay than the boys' head coach, and actually than her own assistant coach.
Yes.
And she's the head coach. So in discussing this with Mr. Bennett, I find it as a violation of Title IX, that it's opening us up to great liability because they're not getting paid what they're worth and in comparison to their colleague. So I'm concerned immediately about that. I know we have all these others to look at, but we have an immediate need to remedy a Title IX problem, which opens us up immediately to liability. And that may be something Mr. Bennett needs to chime in on. I'll let you off the hook, but Mr. Bennett?
I wouldn't say that any one factor creates liability. There's a big picture there's a big picture analysis where you're looking at lots of factors to be sure that there's equity between programs. One of the considerations is how you compensate coaches, but it's one of several. I would say that is something that we definitely need to explore. And if there's an inequity, we need to address it. And I would suggest that we need to do that systemically, not here, not there. It needs to be done as part of an orderly process. I would also say that, and I'm sure you're I know that you're doing this because we've talked about this repeatedly. It's part and parcel of a larger effort that the athletic committee needs to take to be sure that we are being fair to all sports, because equity isn't something that's done in isolation. It's something that applies at this school, at all of its programs, in this school over here, at all of its programs. This is a larger conversation.
Ms. Jackie?
Yes, thank you. I have some questions on the presentation you did. You said that it would be a $500,000 upgrade. Is that a one-time or yearly? What is that?
That was estimated, it would carry through for some time. So if you took the older coaches that were grandfathered in at their, whatever their flat rate percentage would be, so let's say your coach, football coach that's been coaching for 25 years in the system, you're at the top of your step, you're making $14,000 coaching supplement, it will be $14,000 until you retire.
Mm-hmm.
And then once, there'd be a catch-up period on that. In other words, some of your coaches, your younger coaches are gonna make more on the bottom end, but it would eventually balance itself out as the older coaches rolled out or retired.
If they remain coaches though. But that $500,000, that's the estimate. That would be just to get people in line with that. and
With
then
what the flat rate would be, yes, ma'am.
Is that every year is what you're
For-
recommending?
I would estimate, and I would have to get with my colleagues on that. I would think it would probably equalize itself within 5 years.
Okay. Oh, my other question was, and this is for educational purpose, because for me, I see basketball and I see a head coach and then the assistant coach. So for me, that's two people. And like for football, I see a head coach and assistant coach. So for me, could you educate me when you say that there are five coaches and what that looks like?
Yes, ma'am. So in our minor sports, golf, cross country, and tennis, and I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that, but there is one coach, and that is a co-ed coach.
Mm-hmm.
For all other sports, softball, baseball, soccer, boys, girls soccer, basketball, you get two. You get a head coach and assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
Football gets a head coach, and depends on how they want to split their supplement, they can either have 4 assistants or 5 assistants. And that's basically based on liability because football is a contact sport and it requires more supervision.
Okay, so they're not just teaching different, like you got a defense assistant coach and an offense assistant coach?
Well, you would have a head coach,
Mhm.
and then you would have an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and then you could have up to 3 position coaches.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Ms. Felice?
Thank you, Mr. James, for all you do for school athletics. Athletics were a big part of my upbringing, and I actually coached a couple of sports in our county, and one is enough for tennis, so.
Right. No offense.
Not offended at
I
all.
probably should have said non-revenue sports. That might have been better verbiage.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm curious, as far as, your staffing, do you have people to help you, in your role, any staff, or are you a one-man show with athletics?
Just me. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, thank you
Yes,
for all
ma'am.
you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Black?
Hey, thank you so much for everything that you do. I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to recognize that you put in the effort to do this study to try and equalize pay. Whether somebody has been a teacher for 3 years or 20 years, the responsibility of a head coach of any team is exactly the same. And so I appreciate us starting this discussion to move to a flat rate because I feel that's what's fair. Responsibilities are the same when you're coaching a sport. I think we do need to have the discussion about, the size of teams and how much help would be required. But ultimately, I think we do need to move to some sort of flat rate, and I appreciate you putting in the work to do it. Thank you.
Mr. Slater?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Coach, for that information. I'm going to add a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
I have a friend who is a head coach in North Georgia, same number of students, basically, as South Daisy High School has. He has 13 assistant football coaches. Now, why is the Georgia team so much better than us? There's one reason right there. There's one team in the same region as South Daisy High School this year that's got 8 paid assistant coaches. And if he wants more, the booster club will pay for those. So that's really all I wanted to say. But I didn't get a copy of your proposal.
Yes, sir.
Did we get that?
I left those on my desk. We'll come back before the 6 o'clock meeting where we're going to recognize state champions, spring state champions. I will bring you the handouts.
For the, yeah.
Yeah, it's a draft. Oh, you do have that? Yeah.
I'm talking
And so
about
I've got
the
our
pay
current-
scale.
Yeah, I've got our current pay scales and then the proposed, it's a draft of the middle school and high school flat rates. I'll bring those over to you before, but I apologize for leaving those on my desk.
That's okay. I think you've been a busy man, so.
Mr. Grom.
This is a question for Dr. Robertson. What about clubs that are sponsored by teachers? For example, especially student council, for example. I mean,
Clubs were, there are some clubs that you would think of that we're providing supplements for, but if we moved to this flat rate, we would also want to, as Coach James mentioned, this would make us look at band, make us look at the performing choirs, all those things that are tied. It's not just athletic coaches that are tied to this schedule. It is, the band, the performing choirs, things like that. Unfortunately, we don't pay a stipend for things like the chess club, though, and that is something we're missing of, because teachers are spending a lot of time on things like that, but we just financially have not ever, for after-school clubs, provided a stipend.
Interesting. So,
yes.
but most of the time they're not in it for the money,
Yeah.
So, as we all know.
Schaefer.
I want to go follow up to what Felice asked. You're a one-man show. We know that the success of athletics has to start younger. We know that our middle school athletics, we kind of had a lull when we stopped middle school athletics, and then we started it back. Would it be helpful to you to have a middle school athletic director assistant?
I don't want to talk myself out of a job. It could be beneficial, but I think I can handle the responsibility that's currently upon me, but any help would be welcome.
Thank you.
More lights? Thank you, Coach James.
Thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a great evening.
Okay. Committee chair updates. I'll start to my far left there, Mr. Connor.
Thanks, Chair. So I've mentioned before, but I leave from here to go straight to the conference that begins right now and will be held tomorrow and Saturday for all the legislative update from TSBA. So I'm excited about that and look for my update to be held sometime before the next board meeting. But I just wanted to take a quick moment to say in our meeting, we do have a bunch of final reads on some policies, and most of them in there are just simple 1 or 2 lines that we're putting back into order from things that have happened through the Tennessee General Assembly. I pulled up just a couple of quick examples just so we know, so we say them out loud. We are adding into the discrimination and hazing, there is the Tennessee General Assembly has directed all school boards, LEAs, to have, in writing, add information about anti-Semitism and that we are against it, specifically in Tennessee Code 497181. So that's one of them. We've also got instructional materials because of some instances across the country where people called into question some of the language that is in the Bible. they have added, for the sole reason that the material is religious, is not a reason that something can be pulled from a library. And then the last one the last one I pulled up, again, just a couple of examples of, and this one's a little bit more broad. We know that we're going to have to address it in further detail, but policy 4.406, use of internet, is kind of a blanket statement saying that social media is not allowed on our devices at schools. And again, just getting us in the line with some of the quick changes that the Tennessee General Assembly did. I will, as I've done every time, take notes and send them to the board as a whole as soon as I get them. And then those notes will be delineated and spoken and said in my meeting that, again, I will host sometime in the next month.
Okay, thank you. Policy?
Our next meeting is September the 9th. We'll be reviewing first reads that are submitted next month, the August meeting, as well as school board operations, because it's quarter one.
Okay. Finance?
Thank you, Chairman. We're going to do a joint meeting with facilities. I know Gary has some things that he wants to chat about. So I'm gonna coincide the finance committee meeting alongside that, just with ease of availability for everybody. Just try to streamline it as best we can. We won't go long. There's really one thing that I wanted to kind of start doing on a more quarterly basis. This is something I talked to Mary Ellen and Dr. Robertson and Penny Murray about, primarily around our health insurance. Just getting a better grasp collectively, the board, just kind of where we are trending against what we allotted within the budget, just to make sure we're staying within the confines of what we set within that. So that's one thing. So we're going to get Penny's going to kind of do an overview. We're actually going to bring the broker in that we work with. That's a local company to kind of walk through it. So it's going to be a great opportunity to ask discussions and questions. But the 25th, 5:30 p.m. of August will be that joint meeting with facilities.
Okay, now, he had set a facilities meeting for the 28th, of July. So is that meeting still going to happen, or?
I think we worked to get it on
Okay.
the 25th. I was
Okay. So
texting
the
with
25th
Mr. King.
of August.
Yes, sir.
Can you repeat the time, please?
5:30 p.m.
5:30.
Okay. Transportation, Mr. Grown.
No report.
No report. Athletic committee, Mr. Slater.
But there will be.
Ample preparation time.
Okay, good. Okay, so that takes us down to discussion of our agenda. And usually we don't get that far. So what I'll do is just leave it up to you guys. I'm not going to go through each item. If there's something on there that you have a burning desire you want to pull up and let's talk about for a few minutes, we've got a little while. So let's do that. So, Mr. Connor?
Thank you, Chair. So mine is not against this in any way, but item 8D1 under Dr. Sharp's information, the bond-funded capital projects, FY26 budget amendment self-funded. If you pull it up and look at it, there's only two items. There's one for Hardy Elementary, an awesome partnership to build a playground. And then at McConnell Elementary, a multi-purpose building. I would be remiss if I didn't say that about this time, nearly, or now 3 years ago, this body, I should say, not this exact board, chose to fund to build a gymnasium at Rivermont. And at that time, I said that this is a building we're going to keep, and it's a building that we're going to use, and it's a building that we have no intention of getting rid of, and we're going to use it. We've said many different things, from an early childhood education center, but it is not something that's going away. And we chose not to, we as a board unanimously voted to approve that, and then the money was taken back from us by not acting on it quick enough and by the county commission. This building would have taken 6 to 12 months to create, so I just want to be really clear that right now there's a third year of kids going to school at Rivermont Elementary, having gym in a classroom because of our inactions. Well, not even our inactions, because of the actions that were taken. And we have not even moved a single rock at DuPont to build them a new school.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm trying to find this FY '26 budget amendment. I have a question. That's what I'm trying to find.
Which one, Ms. Jackie?
I'm trying the FY '26 budget amendment, federal programs and position approvals. I'm trying to find it on here though. Is that under the, oh, this general purpose and position approval, federal programs and position, is that where it is, this budget? I have-
What positions are you talking about, Ms.
I
Thomas?
wanted to know on this page where it had stipends and then it has social worker stipends. Is that for telephones? What is that for? Because the stipend for the telephones were removed from social workers, so I wanted to know if this $15 amended budget was for that purpose.
Good evening. I think this is on the McKinney-Vento related.
Only.
Yeah, so that's, I believe, and I'm making sure it's the stipends for having social workers provide extra support for our homeless students. In addition, when they have to do some extra support for that.
Okay, not necessarily, just for the students, not the social workers, okay.
It's paying social workers for extra effort that they're doing for homeless students. I think they have to do some extra home visits.
Yeah, it's dealing with, it's often social workers work beyond the school day, particularly with this population. So it is providing the stipend for that time when they're having to do things.
So for possibly overtime. So my question is, they have to, what you just said, for the homeless population out doing home visits as well, but they're not provided a stipend for the telephone uses if they have an emergency, if something happens. That's my question. That's not included in that.
The way we address cell phone stipends is for anyone that is after hours required to respond. We did not change their cell phone stipend. Now, what we talked about in the budget process is those guidelines had gotten pretty loose, and to be honest with you, since cell phones started being general practice 20-plus years ago, just the use of them has changed. But we had a lot of people that were not requiring to respond to anything after hours that were getting cell phone stipends that we either reduced or took away. A really good example of this, I always think about our maintenance crew, like our HVAC techs. We often are calling them at 7 o'clock at night to respond to something, and so they are getting a cell phone stipend. So for these homeless social workers having to respond to issues after hours, I think that's what you're referring to is why they would be getting the cell phone stipend.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Schaefer?
I have questions about, these are grant funded, correct? These two new positions are grant funded completely.
Yeah, when you say the positions, because I think it's getting confused on that, but you're talking about the McKinney-Vento positions. There's a homeless specialist and then an assistant.
Okay, so my question is, coming out of this budget season, why could we not take 2 current employees to fill that position and free up the general fund budget and pay them through the grant? So free up some money in our budget.
It's an option. So this grant, we wrote it and it came after the budget was approved. So if you remember the budget process, these 2 positions were actually cut. And so when we got the funds from McKinney-Vento, didn't get as much as we wrote it for, but we got, I think, a little bit more than what we had previously gotten. So we have, anywhere 1,400 to 1,500 homeless students, and right now we're at 1 employee that is working with those students. That's where we were 4 and 5 years ago. And so we're requesting to put these back in the grant. But to be clear, I think the question you're asking is, they are grant funded. There's no one in them right now. So when we hire these people, it will be clear that they are grant funded. So if the McKinney-Vento grant, for whatever reason, doesn't come around next year or is less than what is required to fund these positions, these positions would go away.
But is there any way to take someone that you've already employed? Because we didn't give step raises, so it's not a great look to keep adding positions to central office. I understand what you're saying about it. But is there a way to take 2 current employees to fill these 2 new positions that are grant funded to free up some money in the budget?
There's a possibility of looking at that. What I would argue is I would not put these as central office. These are people that are working directly with our homeless students and our homeless families. And so it kind of gets in that gray area of they're not assigned to a school, but they are working directly with students and families that are either in transition or experiencing homelessness.
I'm just trying to think of how it could be palatable
Yeah.
to our employee base and our teachers who didn't get step raises. That's all.
Mr. Felice?
Since we have time to talk about it, I did, request, I'd like some copies of a few things, like
I've
the
got it for you,
McKinney.
sorry.
and
Differentiated comp.
Yeah, just a couple things. Yes, that, and I think the community forward schools. So which ones, since it's not specific, is the XED, the general purpose and position? Because it's really general, and the, like, under A, capital A, and capital B is the homelessness, right? I just want to clarify that. In the consent, because they're both in the consent agenda,
Yep.
right?
So you're talking about the exceptional ed positions, the
Yes, is
coordinator
that the
position?
general purpose and position of people?
Yeah, so we're using, if you remember in the budget season, when we put aside
Right.
exceptional ed dollars, knowing that we would have to come back at some point with some needs. These are needs that we are bringing back to you. The positions are specific to, not to a school, but to a population of kids. So we have to
Right.
provide evaluation services. We have to provide things like speech and language therapy to students that are in private schools, students that are in home schools, that are in Head Start and things like that. So these two positions are working directly with those kids that are not in our schools, but we still have to provide services for.
Okay, I just wasn't sure since it was general, in general terms here. The other thing I would just really like to hear a little bit more about is the MOU, and I'd love a copy of that, but in the related ICA proposal for expansion of community forward schools in partnership, and I'm like, since we have extra time, the partnership with the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga and Community Schools of Tennessee. And I'd like to know maybe what schools, if it's community forward schools, or what population we're serving in that area.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do a little bit of history, and then I'll bring us forward. So the concept of community schools has been a conversation in Hamilton County for many, many years. Northside Neighborhood House was the first, what I would call, anchor partner who stood up community schools in North River and has since expanded. As that concept and Chris, Vice Chair Mosley Jones is deep in the community forward kind of vision casting a while ago, but the city of Chattanooga wanted to become an anchor partner as well, and they are funding coordinators in 8 of our schools right now. So again, the concept is an anchor partner provides funding for a coordinator to be in the school. That coordinator does any number of things, but a lot of it is bridging towards other partners. And this particular conversation is we're expanding to other, what we would call anchor partners. So the UTC is taking on Tommy F. Brown, and the community in schools, which is, again, to think of it as an anchor partner, is taking on some East Ridge schools. So they're taking on East Ridge Elementary, Middle, and High, and Central, and I believe Brown is the 5th one, but it might be Harrison.
Central was mentioned in.
Yeah, it's either Brown or Harrison. It might be Harrison.
I think it was.
Is it Brown?
Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brown.
So I think the best way to think about this is if, we think all of our schools, every single school in Hamilton County has community partners, right? Every single one. And so it's kind of a continuum of community partnership. So the most robust community partnerships are kind of under this community forward umbrella, where they have anchor partners and very specific kind of supports that they're providing.
Okay, so what kind of supports are we offering? And are those grant funded, or how are they funded? Or they're partly from the city, partly from, I'm trying to remember from when I
They're
read.
largely funded from the partners themselves.
The partners, and then the county or city, and then we do fund part of it too. It was not
So for
some.
example,
So with the
From
city of
whatever.
Chattanooga, we employ 8 community forward coordinators. Everything that goes with them, salary, French, IT equipment, supplies, resources that the city has, all of that is in kind to Hamilton County. The only thing in that partnership that Hamilton County provides to us is the partnership, of course, with the Community Forward framework, the space in the school, and then, of course, the coordinator becomes part of the leadership team in that school to help meet the needs of the students in that school, to remove any social barriers that could create academic barriers. But the city wholeheartedly, over $1 million, invest in that. That's city dollars. That's why earlier in doing budget season, I was like, oh, no, because the city does pay into that. Now, I know with Northside, there is a component that they pay.
That's right.
And then there is a piece that we contract, Hamilton County contracts with them. Then again, Northside raises that money through their nonprofit to fund those employees. The same with On Point, similar to that. So I can speak to those. And then now having seen these speaks, being able to speak to these. But with the city, it's wholeheartedly in kind. Everything is in kind. That
That's
Hamilton County,
wonderful.
we don't.
Thank you
PO.
to the city. But what kind of services? Is it after-school tutoring or any other kind of resources? What do we do?
The best way to think about these coordinators is literally coordinating services based on the needs in the building. So it could be after-school tutoring, it could be support with housing, it could be support with health, it could be support with any number of needs that the child needs. So it really builds kind of an anchor person in the building who organizes those partnerships that are external partners coming into the building.
And are
largely.
those coordinators for each of the schools, are they full-time positions for that specific school?
They are.
Okay. I just wanted more information since I wasn't familiar with it. So thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Black?
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're being clear and comparing apples to apples. The federal grant that's coming from the federal government for McKinney-Vento to fund work with homeless students what is that dollar amount?
339,000, I believe, is the number.
And how much would it have cost us if we had included step raises in our budget?
It's somewhere around 4.5, I think.
So not really apples to apples. Okay.
Ms. Schaefer?
I want to pull the equity policy to discuss that.
What number is that?
This is 5.1042.
Okay.
In our policy meeting, we discussed this at length. And we took out some of the language that was concerning that Miss Mary had helped us peg so that we made sure we were within the law. But I wanted to circle back because there was a lot of conversation about whether we even needed this policy. And Miss Jackie, you kind of led that conversation. So it is on for a second and final. And so I wanted to make sure I brought it back up because we spent a long time speaking about it. Scott, can you remind the board of what the new law change was, that we don't necessarily have to have this policy,
Right.
but you had kind of said maybe we should have it?
Well, and that's ultimately a decision for the board. This particular, so let's back up. Initially, the General Assembly had required us to develop a diversity policy. Well, it required the state board to develop a rule that required us to do it. We did it. Subsequently, the General Assembly enacted a public chapter that says that particular state board rule was repealed, and also said that any hiring decisions have to be based on the quality of the applicants. So what we could do is we could simply get rid of the policy altogether. But one of the points that I had made talking to you and talking to other board members and to the administration is that there's some value, I think, in underscoring that the administration can recruit talent wherever you find it. And so what we have done here is made very minimal changes to the already existing policy. The already existing policy, which tracked with the state board rule, required the development of specific goals. Well, under the new public chapter, it's clear that's inappropriate. So we took that out. And so the rest of the policy is your existing policy because your predecessors had spent quite a lot of time looking at this and trying to figure out how do we send the message to folks that we would recruit, that we want to recruit them? How do we send the message to folks that we want to retain, that we want to retain them? And so it seemed to me that this was an effective tool to use, provided we took out the language goal. Because if you have any hiring goals or retention goals, then it seems that you're elevating considerations, you're elevating considerations other than the quality of the applicant or quality of the employee. So, the long story short is this, minimal edits, because this board had decided previously that this was a worthwhile policy. It also provides guidelines to the administration that, you know, you really are focused on quality per state law. And that's all I can remember right now. Mayor, was there anything else?
I think you
Yeah. I feel like there's something else, and if it occurs to me, I'll blurt it out later.
Ms. Jackie?
Oh, I just wanted to say about this policy, I think, and Jody was referring to what I indicated last time, and I want to say it again. I don't think you would ever need a diversity policy if people would do what was right.
Yeah.
Because by any means, people of color or whatever that I guess that everyone thinks DEI refers to are just as qualified as anyone else if people would at least give them the opportunity. I think that's why this was even written, because they were not being given the opportunities or the chances, and they were more qualified sometimes than those that were hiring. I also want to kind of respond to everyone is on this DEI, and let's make it clear, even the young lady that was up here speaking about DEI and not wanting DEI, people that look like her are the #1 recipients of DEI. So we need to make it clear when everyone is talking about, for me, DEI, what are you specifically talking about? Because if you do not understand DEI and you're just thinking it's that of people of color, it is not. White females are the #1 recipients of the DEI and what's happening and who gets jobs just because they're white females. So right there alone, people need to understand that they don't look like me, even though I may very well be more qualified than that white female that's getting that job. Not saying that white females are not qualified. I just want everybody, when we get to talking about these policies, to clearly understand they're not there just to possibly help people of color. They're there to help other people who are #1 recipients of it as well. I just want to make that statement and make it clear in regards to that. Thanks.
Mr. Connor?
Thank you, Chair. That was perfectly said, Jackie, and Jody, thank you for bringing this up. This is another example of how we very slightly tweak something to be in line with the Tennessee General Assembly. And I will give my apologies. I was, that policy meeting, I was celebrating 18 years of marriage to my wonderful wife, and I was not here. But this is one that as Scott said, was already on our policy and something that we made a minor tweak to. So again, I think that's why it's packaged together. But I appreciate you bringing it up to make sure that there's one more that we've talked about and that we are saying out loud, this is why we're changing these things. Like, this is from the Tennessee General Assembly. This is why we're taking policies and spending the time to change them. We're doing our due diligence to our state representatives.
Ms. Jones?
So I just wanted to say, because I lived through the equity planning under Dr. Johnson, when the policy was created, well, and even prior to Dr. Johnson, when we were looking to recruit, because when you looked at the data at that time, when you looked at the data pool of employees, and Dr. Robertson was here at operations at that time, when you looked at them, the percentage of teachers of color was very low on the pie chart. Very, like, it was beyond slim picking. Like, you wouldn't even want that last sliver of pie. It was very small. And so it was very intentional in recruitment to try to bring cultural representation into the district to show students of all races, creeds, and colors what the world looked like. That the world just didn't look one color, one race, one sex, whatever. It was to show have more of a significant impact and representation of our city, of our state, of our world. Very intentional in doing that, and we ask for that as a board. Like when you're recruiting, are you going to these places to recruit these students? Are you reaching out to these people? I mean, that was intentional. When the state of Tennessee came out with its beautiful equity playbook. You remember that, Joe? I did. I'm sorry, Joe lived there with me. The equity playbook. We were trying to be aligned with the state then. The state changes its mind, clearly. They had a whole equity playbook, and now look what they're doing. But there was an equity playbook, and we were working very hard to try to align with that, which is how the position of the chief equity officer came into play. I mean, I say this all the time. If you go back and watch our board meetings, research our history, we just wasn't pulling stuff out. I mean, Tucker was a part of that. We just wasn't pulling stuff out of, wow, hairs, gray hair out your chin. Like, this stuff was intentional because we were trying to make sure that we were doing what was right for all children that represented our community, because our community doesn't look just one way. And so I wanted to say that beyond just even what the educated diversity policy was, everything that we've done, and like Jackie said, DEI, and anyone else who understands it knows that it is far beyond the color or the melanin quality of someone's skin. And it's very important that we, as a governing body in an educational system, understand what that looks like so that we do not give false education to the people that we represent. If you do not understand what that means, please take the time to research it and educate yourself so that you do not mislead people, you do not miseducate people. That is unfair to your constituents, because I'm pretty sure out of all the districts, all 11 of us, none of our districts look one way. And so we all have constituents that look a lot of ways and identify with a lot of things, and we represent them all when we sit here at this dais. So we have to be very cognizant of that when we're talking and thinking things. We don't want to appear to be biased.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Anything else anybody wants to throw out here?
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Bring board's attention to a couple things. First of all, we're going to have a presentation of, we have an amended application from Tennessee Wildflower Public Schools that Office of Choice, Mr. Bowles and Ms. Moore will present that to the board. So flag that. And then you've got two items that we've got to add to the agenda, or we're requesting to add to the agenda. One is around the state bonus, and then the matching funds or the funds that you approved in the budget. So that's there. And then the second thing to add is board approved in March support for the East Side Elementary, the Trust for Public Land, and turfing that piece of field. There's an MOU that will kind of codify that decision that we need to add to the agenda. Ma'am? Yeah, under board matters, yes, ma'am.
I think Mr. Bennett had one more thing to add about keeping us in line with the law.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The thing that I forgot to mention is that there were some concerns about the executive order from the Trump administration about Title VI. This policy aligns with that. In fact, Tennessee law aligns with that. So there's really nothing that required a change in Tennessee, and certainly not in Hamilton County. If you look at line 27 for the diversity policy, we provide that all strategies adopted under this policy shall comply with applicable state and federal laws. No hiring or employment decisions shall involve preferential treatment. And so that's just a reminder that you can have intentional efforts to be mindful of diversity within this system without putting your thumb on the scale. So if you think about it, you can increase your applicant pool of qualified candidates, and this is a strategy that businesses have done for many years to comply with federal contract regulations. It's something that school systems have done very successfully. If you increase your applicant pool, you're going to get more qualified applicants, and so just as a matter of math, you're going to increase diversity. If you do a good job recruiting highly qualified candidates, whatever their color or background is, and you do a good job of retaining those people, then just as a matter of math, you're going to improve your diversity. So this policy tracks with Tennessee law, it tracks with state law, with federal law, and it tracks with the policies that this board has said are important.
Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair. Point of procedure, will you be, have you and the chair, as the executive committee, chosen to add these to the agenda, or will you be seeking a second and a motion during the approval of the agenda?
Yeah.
Will of the board. I mean, we talked about it, but if y'all want
Yeah,
to do
we're
a second.
gonna add those on,
Okay.
but in a different place than what you
Okay,
suggest. And when we amend the budget, get to that point, we'll take care of that.
You will be looking for it? Okay, then I'll make that motion.
Okay. Ms. Thomas?
Yes, I want to add, I guess, to talk about 8A1, the district differentiate aided pay plan. I have a question in regards to that. Is that on some of the pages on, let's see.
On the administrative matter, business matters, different district.
Yeah, it's under
A1,
A1, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
okay. I wanted to ask a question because in here, in one part of it, it says, mentors in an effort to increase new teacher retention and effectiveness, the district would compensate certified employees for mentoring and providing support for first, second, and third year teachers in their current and/or building. I guess my question is that not what the principals do anyway? Are they not supposed to provide that mentorship, that training of teachers? What does that look like when you say, is somebody else going to do it other than the principal?
Yeah, I think it's a both and. So principals absolutely do coaching of teachers, the administration does as well, but we added mentor teachers, I believe 4 years ago, to kind of just differentiate support in the first, second, and third years, and we train them specific to the needs of first, second, and third year teachers. I think the number going into this year was, we had a 91% retention rate of those early career teachers, and so this is, and that retention rate has increased, and we believe it's as a result of that kind of teacher shoulder-to-shoulder mentor that we see in the buildings. It's also a way to acknowledge kind of the expertise of our teachers in the building, who often want to coach early career teachers kind of in the craft.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay. Ms. Schaefer?
I received today a job description that's set out on Indeed.com. And I had some questions for Mr. Bennett about this culture of care facilitator. Was that a line item in our budget, that position, or has it been renamed, or?
It's part of Stop School Violence grant that was approved in December, and it just didn't get filled in the spring, so it was in the budget. I know there were some questions about the job description that we'll take a look at, but the position itself was in a grant that was funded, or approved, sorry, in December, and then went through the budget process.
Okay,
I understand I've talked to Chairman about concerns with the job description, and we'll look at that, and happy to talk about it and bring something back to the board that's different.
I just want to make sure it fits in within this
Yeah.
policy.
Yep.
Mr. Daugherty?
What is the expectation for that role? I'm assuming you guys put some background thought into how you imagine that position being
Yeah.
filled, and
That part of that grant, so in December, and again, we're more than willing to look at it and talk about differences. So there are really two jobs that were written into that grant, and there were two focuses. One around school culture, and so someone that's going in and working with schools around school culture, doing school culture walks, and then also there's a component of it that's written into it around ending vaping in schools. So there's kind of two parts to that grant, but the job description that you're talking about is strictly around school culture.
when it says and granted, benefit of the doubt, you guys say you're going to look at it, but again, I'm sure there was some thought process into this role. The coordinator will play a key role in embedding equity into district-wide practices. What do you mean by that?
Well, so when you look at the equity policy and what we talked about as a district, and I know that there are things that are adjusting, but we've talked about equity being across the board, and how it influences the specifically the belonging and how our kids in schools feel valued. So when we're talking about equity in schools, like one of the things that I look at is when I walk in schools, do we have representation of different kids in what's hanging on the walls, right? If it's a population that has families that maybe speak Spanish, do we have signage that's accessible to them? So it's things like that that we're looking at to make sure that we're creating environments that value the students that the schools are serving.
So would this role encompass every single school across Hamilton County, or would this
Yeah.
be specific to a few schools?
No, it's across the county. And we're making some adjustments. I'll let Dr. Stewart. We were doing these walks separate, which I think that we've learned from it and are changing it. What we believe is that these should go across the learning walks. I'll let you kind of talk about that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, we've heard from the schools really clearly that there were different purposes for different walks and that we would like to consolidate those, so that is happening. One other thing, though, I want to point to in this particular role is that written into the grant were these micro grants that schools could apply for. $250, I think, is what they are, $2,500, I think is actually what they are, that they could focus on a specific need in their school that they wanted to address. And so there was a little bit of a competitive grant process. So this person will also be kind of building capacity at the school level for the school to address whatever that need was that they felt like they wanted to build and add into their culture of care piece. So they're going into schools and looking and supporting the culture of care, but there's also kind of helping manage some of these school-based initiatives and building the capacity at the site level.
So one could assume this role would work. Who would they work most closely with within the schools? Granted, the fact that they're going to be floating across a wide array of schools, when they go in, are they working with the principals? Just for my own curiosity, I'm curious how the assimilation.
It would probably actually be an assistant principal or a dean. Principals tend to give kind of parts of the work to somebody to oversee, and this might be an assistant principal who's responsible to manage the RTI2B plan, for example, which is just expectations, culture, environment. It would be somebody like that in the building. It could be the student support coach as well, who works directly with this person.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, I have no more lights right now, and we're about 5 minutes before the start of our regular meeting, so let's adjourn this work session, take a brief little break, and re-adjourn our regular 6 o'clock start. So work session stands adjourned.